Girls who can afford these expensive brands, which ones do you have? When did you get them? Have they gone up in value? Are you looking to buy more? Well, we can help you with that because we've got some designers that you need to add to your collection because they are much needed in every vintage collection. So grab your glass and sit down for a talk about fashion. First, let's take a look at the market. Listen, the vintage market is going absolutely insane. If the piece is kept in amazing condition and is wearable, then you're looking at some pretty high prices when it comes to reselling. The reason why vintage is appealing is because there is a limited number for people to have. 30 years ago, only certain people could find these pieces, but now there are a lot of people looking to buy these pieces on a global scale, and it's not stopping anytime soon. Even when you see them at expensive prices, they're still cheaper than the modern stuff that's coming out now. Also, buying vintage clothing can be an investment because their value will increase over time. This list is made up of 8 designers to look out for when it comes to collecting vintage pieces. What do you think made it to the list? First up, Yves Saint Laurent. Yves will always be a collectible. His work only seems to become more beautiful and become more special as time passes. Yves made clothing that women wanted to wear, but they also felt like they needed to wear in order to join the ultimate group. The longer time passes from when a piece was made, the more relevant the piece ends up becoming. It's amazing. Basically, almost anything he's made has become a collectible, so it's always a good bet. He is the reason for the smoking jacket, the trapeze dress, and the jumpsuit. However, if you really want to look out for something, then keep an eye out for his safari pieces and his beautiful taffeta and silk gowns, because they are to die for. Also, the pieces he made in the late 1970s and early 80s are just magnificent. The haute couture item is hard to find, but if you see it, then snatch it up because it's his great legacy. Do you own any Yves Saint Laurent? Next, James Gallianos. The everyday person won't know his name, but amongst the vintage connoisseurs, his work is highly coveted. James Gallianos was an American designer and was the answer to the European snobbery towards the USA. Gallianos ended up making couture-level gowns with a craftsmanship that left France's most esteemed courtiers with their mouths wide open. You go, Gallianos. Anyways, the Gallianos gowns were amazing and were sought after in high society back in the day. If you ever see one of his silk gowns or long bias-cut chiffon dresses, you must get it because they are magic. Also, if you see any of his embellished pieces, then you will notice the level of craftsmanship in his work. These pieces will continue to increase in value, and there might even be a museum about his work coming soon. So definitely grab something if you can. Have you heard of James Gallianos? Up next, Christian Dior. Dior has had an incredible impact on the fashion industry. The original pieces by Monsieur Dior himself have never even been passed down. He started in 1946 and began making waves in the fashion industry once he created his Maison. The new look, silhouette, became a classic shape, and it is one of the shapes to get in vintage clothing. This timelessness has been taken and has inspired many other amazing originals as well. The original couture versions can cost as much as a small car, but you'll find that they're actually a bargain. When Dior died in 1957, the house was in chaos until a young Yves Saint Laurent was placed to take over. His rise to importance was all done by himself. Some of the best pieces to find and keep are the chiffon gowns by Marc Bowen from Christian Dior from the late 60s to early 80s. Dior is still well known today. Why do you think that is? Is it the designs? Maybe because he was such an iconic person back in the day. He just needed to stay around. Next, we have Paco Rabanne. Paco Rabanne is one of those designers that changed how people viewed fashion all over the world. Rabanne set the town with his first runway in 1966, and he called the collection 12 unwearable dresses in contemporary materials. His work is often thought of as futuristic armor, and his influence still has a place today. Robin admitted to using strange materials in his work. He had a love of turning non-fashion materials into high fashion, is what formed the very basis of everything that is now a collectible by Robin. You're going to want to look for the pieces that have the metal discs, rhodoid plastic, joined with metal rings, paper, leather, and rubber. The ultimate find that you have to buy if you see it is his signature chainmail technique dresses and tunics. These pieces are the collectible pieces you really want to buy. However, they are expensive, so be prepared for that. What do you think about fashion that is made of non-fashion material? Keep watching for some more amazing collectible vintage clothing you need. Next on our list is George Halle. George Halle will give you old school glamour and Hollywood royalty feeling with his pieces. Halle was a Coty Award winner in 1968 and was one of the great American courtiers because his work is always elegant and grand. Visualize polished silk and fused velvets with embellishments. It just sounds beautiful. Silhouettes to look for are the sweeping ball gowns and the hostess gowns. He used rich fabrics and rich colors as well. There were feathers, crystal, hand-painted fabrics, and fine workmanship with all of his gowns. So you know you're getting the best of the best. You will feel like one of the most important people after slipping this on. These are all showpieces, so they will be expensive, but you won't be disappointed in the quality and the beauty. Have you ever heard of George Halle? Next, Pierre Balmain. Founded in 1945, this couture house has been popular among all glamorous women around the world. Balmain's style was known as Jolie Madame because he was able to encapsulate both vivacity as well as elegance in his work. He did also say, "Good fashion is evolution, not revolution." Do you agree with that statement? Anyways, this French house has been worn by some of the most beautiful and well-known women like Audrey Hepburn, Ava Gardner, Brigitte Bardot, Josephine Baker, Katharine Hepburn, Marlene Dietrich, and Sophia Loren. Those are all some pretty big names. You can grab chic day suits to the most glamorous dresses when buying anything from this collection. They are all a classic and perfect to put in your vintage closet. However, early pieces are hard to find, and even if you do find them, you are looking at paying a lot of money for them. So think about that before you purchase anything. Would you buy a Pierre Balmain just because of who's worn it in the past? Up next, Emilio Pucci. The Pucci print has been taken for granted in our modern world. For every single Emilio Pucci print, there was a hand-drawn rendition that was signed. The vivid kaleidoscope of color combinations were made possible because of the constant pushing and manipulating of the chemical textile manufacturers. That is why people are still amazed by how bright and fresh these vintage dresses are, even though they were made 60 years ago. The thing is, the brighter the color, the more vintage it is. So if you see a really bright piece, make sure to grab it right away. The velvets seem to wane in the market, but the silk jerseys always command attention, and the silk chiffon gowns and jumpsuits are amazing. However, when it comes to the more modern designs by Peter Dundas, they have done really well, and he's tried his hardest to make designs like Pucci. Would you buy an Emilio Pucci piece? Another for the list, Oscar de la Renta. When this designer passed, it was truly a tragedy. His designs now command many thousands of dollars if you're able to snag one from somewhere. The earlier pieces are extremely desirable as collectors and museums realize that an era has ended with his passing. Oscar de la Renta is the gold standard for universal elegance. In 1965, he launched his own house and made a name in creating modern romantic fashions for the world's most beautiful women. You can find pieces that span over the full 49 years of his career. His very early boutique pieces are amazing, and if you can find some, wow, definitely purchase it. They all hold secrets of every single collection. Also, at the time of these being made, his operations were small, so you know that he looked and checked every single piece that was made. How beautiful. Well, that's our list of the top vintage pieces to add to your closet. Are there any names you knew would be on here? Any names that surprised you? Or did we miss someone? Well, if you see any of the pieces, definitely buy them because they're amazing. Tell us all of your thoughts down below because we want to know them.